Hello, I'm Christine Pensa, and this is episode 135 of the Awakened Woman Self-Care podcast. And this podcast is all about exploring sacred self-care in this moment, in these new times, because sacred self-care is about creating a life that you do not need to be distracted from. So, welcome. Hi. So, really interesting time right now. Again, it keeps being interesting. I know I say that almost every episode, but really, this is such a powerful transformational time. And also, a lot of it is not easy. And we're journeying through some terrain that may be unfamiliar. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. And that is finding our new footing in this moment, on this ground. And what I'm noticing in myself, hands up me, and also in a lot of my community and people that I am seeing reflected around me, that we are watering this ground, this new ground, a lot of us, with our tears. And I know that can sometimes feel really as though that is perhaps a failing, or we're doing something, we're not in, quote, alignment with something. And what I am discovering in this moment really powerfully is that it is in complete alignment with everything that we're doing. It is actually these tears that we are shedding. These tears are actually part of this emptying out of what is not us, and stepping in to filling ourselves back up with the truth of who we are. And I saw something on Instagram where somebody was reacting to being called out for being full of herself. And that for me brought up, like, well, who else are you full of? And I actually began to think about that, and with respect to this now moment. So if you're not full of yourself or your true essence, then there is all this space for lots of other things to come in and fill that space up with. And so what I wanted to talk about with you, and actually invite you to dive deeper in, is this inquiry of how much self are you full of? And where can you clear out more of what isn't you and bring in more of what is you? And how do you determine that? And I think that is, well, everyone will have their own journey with that, but I think that that is reflected in a lot of the tears that I have been shedding for myself, for the collective, um, for friends and family, for all of it, because as I see more and more clearly what is not me, there's certainly a bit of grief that I have, kind of, and this is just how I feel about it, kind of wasted my effing time with it, Like, yeah, I feel a little bit of grief about that. I feel that makes me sad. I feel sorrow that there is this life that we have cultivated that really does not love ourselves, that does not find true joy of expansion in our own sacred self and our own self-care and that joy that you can have when you say I love you, and it goes right through your heart and activates every part of your being, and then you realize it's everything, that you are connected to everything, and not in a way that is at all depleting. It is just expansive. Um, and so you fill yourself with that truth instead of filling your time with, and we all do this and have done this. So, um, it's a moment to stop. We're at this beautiful moment where we're invited to take, it's that breath in and the pause between the breath, where it's this beautiful, neutral space and there's nothing happening. And I think in the last podcast, I talked about how, filling yourself with your breath and then just allowing the natural movement of your breath to come out without any forcing or trying. And I think that filling yourself with you is actually that kind of effortlessness. And yet there is, it's like a walking through, I'm looking for a house right now. And this past weekend, we walked through this giant shed. And it was like a minefield, because I think they just decided to clear out the house and throw everything into the shed. Hey, and that's a good metaphor too. Even if we've cleared out one area, there may be other areas, and that's what this kind of this fun is of this self-inquiry. So where's that shed where you can't even walk through because it's so full of stuff? So you can't see the shed, you can't see the floor, you can just see the stuff. And so how do you begin to navigate and see very clearly what is it you're full of? And who else are you full of? What else are you full of? Are you filling your time with busyness in order to not see some of this, or that's just become a habit, and it's not even that you really even that's enjoyable to be busy, because sometimes busyness for the sake of busyness becomes its own little trap. There are things that you can be busy all day, and yet it won't feel like busyness. It will just feel like, oh, and now I'm doing this, and oh, and now I'm going to move to this, and you can have exciting plans that are for finding out more or exploring or having some joy in your life, having company for the sake of real joy and experiencing, creating, cleaning the house, creating a beautiful meal for them. That can be a joyful busy. And yet there are other times where that's an obligation busy. And you feel like, oh, I have to make the house look a certain way, or I have to create a certain meal. And then that is actually draining. And then you're focused on that and you're spending a lot of energy. So what is you right now? What is it that you are full of? Are you full of yourself? Because that's awesome. And notice how that has been used really as a pejorative term. Oh, they're so full of themselves. Really interesting. Yeah, they are, because they're awesome and they love themselves. And that doesn't mean they don't love everything else that they encounter, but it means that they have found this beautiful space to fill themselves with. And that fullness, let's be clear, is not about narcissism and it's not about ego. There's nothing of ego there. To be in this space of self-love, to be in this space of sacred self-care has zero to do with ego, because it's love. It comes from love. That's the seed. It comes from the seed of who you truly are. And so there's a difference there. You are full of yourself. Who else would you be full of? That seed of you planted beautifully on this earth, standing strong. Who else can bring it to blossom and fruition? You, just you. Let's take a look at that, because I think that is really interesting right there, where we have this, and I think if you look back and think back to your childhood and your innocent child space, there was nothing but this sense of joy and wonder at exploring more of you and filling yourself up with all the beauty that was around you, yes, reflected around you. And you just had this sense of wonder. So that's something. Let's take a breath in right now and just see if we can just breathe in some of that wonder. At all this beauty. There is so much beauty around us. And yes, there's a lot of other crap. But let's go back and find that sense of everything, every animal, every insect, every blade of grass, every tree, every leaf, being its own little world that we could explore. And you'll notice that as a child, you likely had more time where you just stopped and looked at a leaf or pondered something and lost, quote, track of time. And that was before we were told and we were conditioned to believe that everything valuable was somehow outside of ourself, that it was in a book, it was in a teaching, it was in a somebody who had done more than us or had more um, a better perspective because of who they were. And that's not to say that we cannot learn and find beautiful teachings and teachers, but there is this moment where you have to know how to pull that information, the teaching, the the incident, let's say you had at the grocery store this morning, pull it back in to yourself. I'm hearing stop, drop, and roll into yourself when there are these things outside. Because sometimes we get so much outside external information that's telling us who and what we are and what is valuable about us and what isn't, and what is good, quote, good about us and what is, quote, bad about us. And we get so overwhelmed that we've brought in all of these perspectives inside of ourselves, and then we get overwhelmed, and then we want to numb out because we're like, whoa, that's just so much. And so we do stuff like, that may not be great for us. Whether that's any kind of addiction or behavior pattern that takes us away from ourselves. And it's perfectly understandable because we're so bloody overwhelmed in the first place. And so let's go back and take a breath again. Stop, drop, and roll into ourselves. And that is the stop of the breath. Soft, close your eyes whenever you have a moment in your day to do it. And just roll into yourself. And that quiet space inside of you that is ready to be filled up with you and releasing all of the other things outside of you. So just breathe that in, and breathe in maybe a little of that wonder. Allow wonder to come up into your day today. Where can you bring that wonder of not losing this fullness of you, this beautiful expression of you, but opening up to the wonder that is reflected around you, and filling yourself up with the truth of you. And allow those tears, if you're one of those, like me and a lot of my buddies right now, my beloveds, you got a lot of tears. So let those tears water the ground of you. Know that they are just what's leaving you, that is not you, and let it water you. Let it be this beautiful, nurturing water for the soil of you, and allow yourself to fill up with that, more of you blossoming in each moment. You're full of yourself. Who else would you be full of? It's such a good question to explore, because you can notice then, who else am I full of? And what else am I full of? So dive into that with a sense of adventure and wonder, and not blaming and shaming and getting into that nonsense loop. We're done with that. Even saying that makes me feel dizzy, saying those words, because they're so heavy. And we are releasing all of that. We are coming in, and what I keep hearing, I'm really coming in, finding my true north and standing in my true north. And that's my way of expressing it at this moment, and that may change. I'd love, actually, you know what, I was thinking, and I saw a thing also about, untranslatable words that can't be translated into English, because they have, English is a very, I always feel it as a very intellectual language. It is very much a lot up in the head and not as much in the heart. And that's what it was. That's what it evolved for. And that's not a judgment, so don't think it is. It's just my personal observation. And there's a lot of languages where there are these words that are, quote, untranslatable into English, because they're not words that are about a head event or a thing. They are to describe a whole scenario, a whole feeling. So, so we need to have a word to come up with this, to describe this feeling that comes when you are full of yourself. What is this word that we can come up? And if you think of a good one, I'd love to hear it. Send it in. On Instagram or Facebook page, or on the podcast page. I'd love to hear. And maybe it isn't translatable, because maybe it's so much a feeling and there are so many perspectives that we can't translate it. But let's try and share it also this week. So when you stop, drop, and roll into yourself and become full of yourself, your true self that is anchored and rooted in nothing but love, then share that out this week. Be that. Just simply be that. Nothing to say about it, but just notice how you being there is really bringing so much, so much love, so much joy, so much wonder back to this earth and to all of us here. So thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that. And thank you also for being here. You've choked me up. I'm thinking of everyone standing and being in that beautiful love space. It really expands my heart so joyfully. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And I noticed recently that on the podcast page on iTunes, there's just a lot of old reviews. And I know that I have shifted a little bit. And I know, and I really feel that this has been a beautiful place for us to connect and to recharge and to understand more of ourselves and this moment that we're moving through on the planet. And so if you have the time and the inclination, please share the podcast with someone, or take the time to write a review on iTunes so it gets seen by someone you don't even know, but whose heart could be touched by knowing there's a community of people out there who are choosing to be full of them, more of themselves, and who are finding their own true north and their own expression of the purity of their own love presence on this earth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you soon, or you will hear me soon. And also, I wanted to mention that I have a new online course for the summer called Art as Soul Practice. And it is, you do not need any art experience. It's a beautiful 4-week or 4-part exploration, video guided journey of creative visualization, self activations, mark making, sacred mark making exercises, all designed and around the 4 shamanic questions, and designed to work with your own self to open up to explore more of you. And so if that calls out to you, that link will be both on the podcast or on my website, artthatmoves.ca. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, beautiful day of wonder and fullness and expansion into more of you. I love you.